Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Add-ons community meeting for April 10th, 2019. I'm joined today with Shivam and Sylvain. I hope everyone is doing well today. We're going to start off this meeting as usual by recognizing some of our friends of Mozilla. So we wanted to give a special call out to Zitronella, who filed 30 block list bugs in 4 weeks. And thanks to those filings, Citronella was able to help our add-ons identify some potentially malicious add-ons on AMO for investigation. So she helped kind of get some potentially malicious add-ons up to the top of the queue. And so we are really appreciative of her taking the time to do that and helping make our community safe. So thank you, Citronella. We're also going to give a shout out to Rahul, who attended an event that was run by Vijwa and Shivam recently. Rahul landed his first open source contribution. I think it was earlier this week. It was yesterday or the day before. So congratulations, Rahul, and thanks so much for contributing to AMO. We really appreciate it. Just want to give a quick shout out to welcome Jorge and Andreas to the meeting. Hi, hope you're doing well. So we're going to go into our discussions and updates section and just give you a quick overview of what's going on and what we're looking ahead to. So I was reviewing the agenda for this week, and I saw that there was a question that was asked last week that I didn't get a chance to answer, so I apologize for that. The question last week was, what is the future of web extension development? Like, what new APIs are coming and what things can we evangelize? And that's a really great question. So Web Extensions API is taking a focus this year to support our overall Firefox goals of supporting user privacy and agency and security. So right now, so I think some of the APIs that we're looking at in the future are things like password manager APIs, which I think will be great for the password manager community, but that'll also help forward some of Mozilla's internal products like Lockbox. Right now, we're going to be introducing support for user scripts as the first declarative API for page actions. So that's kind of like the next big thing that's coming up. So that should be pretty exciting. We're also, and then we're also working on security of the web extensions framework to protect users from malicious extensions. So that's kind of an ongoing project that I don't have a lot of details on right now, but I can get more information for sure. We'll continue to ask Mike for updates on that. So things that you can evangelize. So what I'd really love everybody to do in terms of evangelization is start talking about best practices to keep extensions, to make safe extensions. So these are extensions that honor our users' privacy and that promote user safety when browsing the web. Or I'm sorry, not promote user safety when browsing the web, but if y'all could start asking people to take a closer look at like their data collection practices, making sure that they're employing lean data collection practices like Mozilla does, so that we're not tracking people across the web. Or if you could start telling folks to just make sure that their extension doesn't expose users to risks and perhaps in an unintentional way. But the thing that we're really focusing on this year is safety and privacy. So that there's a lot of opportunities to tell people best practices. We've got some best practices guidelines on MDN. I'll throw some links in the doc in just a couple minutes. So that's where I'd recommend putting your efforts at this time, especially if you're talking to new developers and you're talking about best practices for developing extensions. Security and privacy are words that you're going to hear thrown around a lot over the next couple of years from Mozilla. So it would be super cool if y'all wanted to start getting the community on board with that. Yeah. Any questions about that? All right, cool. We can always come back to it. Our AMO Q2 plans have been published. Jorge sent out an email to the Dev Add-ons mailing list. If you're not subscribed to that mailing list, it's a great place to just kind of stay in the loop about questions that developers are asking, and it's also the place we go to publish plans and notifications about pushes to AMO. So for Q2, I don't know if we covered this in our last meeting, but just as a really quick summary, we're going to be working on supporting recommended extensions, which we're going to talk about in a couple minutes, abuse reporting for add-ons, and working on the file and diff viewer for add-on code reviews. So click on that link if you would like to read more, and don't forget to like and subscribe. No, I'm just kidding. But if you want to join the mailing list, that'd be cool. Yeah. Thanks, Andres. Okay, so for reviewers, we have a feature landing tomorrow with the push to AMO. And this feature is going to pseudo-anonymize reviews. So this is to address kind of an ongoing problem that we've been having where a reviewer's name is linked to the review and is fairly prominently displayed in both the review tool that the developer can access and also goes out in the email that gets sent to developers when review actions happen. Primarily negative review actions, so things like rejecting. That has kind of opened up a few doors for a handful of bad actors to be malicious and retaliate against reviewers who take action that the developer doesn't like. So we're trying to introduce a new layer of protection so that it's going to be a little bit harder for those developers to pinpoint the reviewers and target them for retaliation. So I think Jorge and Andreas can talk a little bit more about how this feature works. If you guys just want to take a quick second or two to kind of explain what this change is going to look like.
Go for it, Jorge.
All right. So yeah, the way it's going to work is that reviewers will see in their user edit page, they will see a new field where they can set the pseudonym, their reviewer pseudonym. And once they set that, then future reviews that they make will be under that pseudonym. That means that the emails that developers get and also the logs that they see in the recent activity for the extension will have the pseudonym rather than the user page. So ideally, reviewers should, well, first they should pick a pseudonym, and secondly, they should pick a pseudonym that is not associated with their online or real life personas. With that, it'll just be more difficult for developers to try to track a review to a specific person and try to retaliate that way. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. So in the reviewer tools, reviewers will still see like the actual usernames of each other, so you'll still be able to know who did what. So the pseudonyms are mostly for the interactions between the developer and the reviewer, and everything else will remain the same.
Yeah. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to send out an email with some. This is all. I'm just thinking of this on the spot. So I think we are going to need to send out an email to the reviewers letting them know about the feature and also providing instructions for how to set up that pseudonym. So keep your eyes open on an email from us with some instructions about that. I think the other thing that is the other thing that we can do is if your pseudonym gets cracked, like if it does somehow get connected back to your online or real life persona, we'll be able to change the pseudonym again. So it's not like you're going to be tied to the pseudonym forever. Like we can change it up. So it's not permanent. So hopefully this will make the experience a little bit better. Again, I think it was probably a really small percentage of developers who did retaliate, but a small percentage is still a percentage. And I would really like to protect reviewers from kind of that kind of harassment and retaliation. It's not fun to deal with. So for everyone who's endured it, I'm really sorry. We're going to do our best to put you in a better position. Yeah. Okay, the other big news that landed this week is Scott published a post to the Add-ons blog on Monday announcing that we have a new program for recommended extensions that's going to be rolling out soon over the summer. So this blog post is kind of like a 30,000 view summary. It doesn't really talk a lot about the details, but this is kind of our first steps to moving towards that curated model that we've been talking about for the last couple of months, and that Nick Wen alluded to in his previous blog post about making the add-ons ecosystem safer. Basically, the biggest difference between featured extensions and recommended extensions is that recommended extensions are basically going to be a mostly static list. There are going to be some changes, like extensions are going to be added to the list and extensions on the list are going to be removed. It's not going to happen as frequently as the featured list has been updating in the past, and everything is going to need to go through a pretty intense vetting process. So even above and beyond what we currently do with featured extensions. So right now, all featured extensions get admin reviewed and have to pass admin review in order to be featured. And there's some light staff curatorial touch on it. Going forward, the editorial bar for being a recommended extension is going to be a lot higher. So you have to prove, or the extension is going to need to be kind of best in class in terms of like usability, user experience, like how it behaves and how useful it actually is, and also pass the security review. The other biggest change to that is that featured extensions right now are pretty much only recommended on AMO in that in the featured extensions tag. Like you can sort by featured extensions. Recommended extensions are extensions that we think are going to be appropriate to recommend to a wider user base. So not just people who land on AMO, but these are extensions that we can recommend for in-product discovery. So using tools like contextual feature recommender, or outgoing emails to users about like which extensions might make their browsing experience more customizable, or like what's another good example, like an onboarding flow. So the first time you run Firefox and you kind of go through onboarding, and it tells you, you can customize with extensions. We might promote some of the recommended extensions to users at that stage. So those are the biggest changes that users should see. For developers of recommended extensions, we're going to want to have a pretty close relationship with them. Recommended extensions are not going to be auto-approved. So anytime a new version comes in, it's going to have to go through the review process before it gets approved for distribution to all of the users. So that's going to be a little bit different. And if we find any flags, we're kind of hoping that the developers will be responsive and address it within a pretty short time frame so that we can keep things moving around. And if it looks like that isn't a thing that the developer is interested in working with us, maybe that extension may become a candidate for being removed from the featured extension list. The other thing about the rollout is that, as Scott mentioned, it's going to start happening this summer. We're going to be identifying extensions that are on the recommended list by adding a little badge to them. So we're trying to like signify that they're a recommended extension, that's, and that should carry some sort of weight behind it. That's our goal. I think that's rolling out with Firefox 68. This is when I'm asking. I think it's rolling out with Firefox 68. Jorge, do you want to fact check me really quickly?
What are we talking about?
Recommended extension badges.
68. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So because 68 comes out I think 68 is going to roll out on like a Monday or a Tuesday. So it's going to be a little, we're going to push recommended extensions to AMO a couple of days prior. So you'll see the recommended extensions badges on AMO before you see it in Firefox. But then once the 168 goes into, like 168 is distributed and you go to the add-ons manager and you go to the discovery pane and extensions manager, you'll start seeing the recommended badges. Any questions about the recommended extensions program?
I got one. Maybe it's more for Scott, but do you have any more details about how the community will be involved with all that?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is going to be community involvement for that. Scott, yeah, it might be a better question for Scott. I can ask him if he can share a little bit more information, but we are looking for community members who are still going to be on that advisory board. I think the other big difference is that in the past, the board's decision has in most parts been final with the exception of security review. So if the board wants to recommend something, our position has been to recommend it unless we catch something during the admin review that would prompt us to not recommend it because we want to protect, people's safety and privacy. Going forward, I think the community involvement can recommend things and can recommend extensions to come in and recommend extensions to come off, but the final decision will rest with staff. The other way that we're looking to kind of get the community more involved is to do continual testing of extensions that are on the recommended list, especially with new version updates, just to make sure that everything still looks gravy. So we're hoping that they'll be kind of like early testers and escalate any issues before anything gets released to a wider audience. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, the last thing I just wanted to make a quick note about, in case this affects anyone who's watching this call, is it turns out that, so we thought we killed animated themes, and it turns out we didn't. So there have been some, is that not true? Okay, maybe I misunderstood that. Okay, I misunderstood that. There's been some concerns about the performance impacts of animated static themes. So we ran a performance study last week and the results were kind of like, So I think what we're doing right now is we're still evaluating whether or not we want to continue letting static themes be animated. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a bit more involved than that. So all of themes can be a performance issue. Because they have very large images, and animated ones can be also a problem because they are running an animation constantly on the main thread. So yeah, we're looking into. There was an optimization that we had for lightweight themes that incidentally also disabled animations. So we need to figure out whether we want to bring that back or not. So we're looking into that.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Yeah. So it looks like we have some really cool announcements from the community. So I'll go ahead and read this. Looks like Shivam just added some reports from the last add-on workshop event in LPU by Vishwa. So thanks, Shivam, so much for including those links to, it looks like, a couple of blog posts. Oh, great. And we've got a couple other attendees who are blogging for, I think, the first time. I know Anushka is a new add-ons code contributor to AMO. So this is awesome. If everybody could take a look and read those and give a little round of applause for our great community in India, that would be awesome. I'm really looking forward to sharing this with our staff. And yeah, and let's congratulate Shivam for a year of contributing to open source. Shivam has been really great about contributing to AMO. He's learned a lot and has been working on a lot of progressively harder bugs. And there's a good chance that if you're a new code contributor to AMO, Shivam is going to be one of the first folks that you end up talking to as like a warm face to welcome you in and help review your code before you submit it. You submit that PR. So thanks so much. Yeah, Shivam, it's been really great having you in our community and getting to know you better. So thanks so much and congratulations. And Andreas, do you want to announce your bullet point there at the end of the agenda?
Sure. So mostly admins, I think, have to deal with a lot of references or reports or mentions referencing add-on IDs, especially when it comes to block list reports. And soon, basically, I think next week, yeah, it will be in next week's push, you'll be able to access the public product page and some other pages as well by just specifying the add-on ID. So you don't have to know the internal AMO ID or you don't have to know the slug. You can just use the official add-on ID, which is globally unique and public, in order to access a product page. And that will also work for reviewer and admin pages. The reviewer and admin pages piece will land tomorrow, or will be live tomorrow, and the public pages piece will be live next week on Thursday. And this is a preview link to our development server, and yeah, just as an example.
That's great. I love shortcuts. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Any questions for Andreas?
Yes, it works with the GUID as well, if there's nothing that the dev specified.
You mean in the manifest?
Like if there's nothing in the manifest, the add-on gets a generic GUID with brackets.
Yes, because as soon as you submit an add-on to AMO, and it will get an add-on ID assigned if it doesn't have one. If it doesn't have one, even
right.
Before.
This GUID will work if you put it in the URL as well, right?
Yes, that's basically. I try to avoid the GUID term specifically because that's already used for something else or something more specific. And so I usually try to call this the add-on ID, but it's basically the same thing.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks, Andreas. So that wraps up everything that I wanted to talk about this week. So I'd like to open up the floor for any other questions or comments. I don't know if that was 11 seconds, but what we learned recently in a couple of product management calls is that it takes people on average 11 seconds to come up with a question or a comment. So if you ask for them, you should be prepared to sit in silence for 11 seconds. But we're going to cut that a little bit. We'll cut that short a little bit today. As always, please feel free to add them to the document that we have linked here, or feel free to ping me, and we'll do our best to get back to you. It's been really great seeing all of your faces today, and yeah, I think that's going to wrap up our meeting. So we'll see you in the future.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a good one.